Hello, welcome back to another edition of Vinyl Show and Tell. Thanks as always for tuning in. We're here after a little while back in the man cave. It's been a while, hasn't it? Last few videos I've been out crate digging. Admittedly I'd like to do a lot more of those, but I haven't got an endless pot of money. So in the meantime we're back in here showing things that I've already got. So if you clicked on it, I think you know what the subject is all about. I'm just going to be showing off some of my favourite double albums. When people think about double albums, I think it can go one of two ways. People either think they're absolutely wretched, or they can be kind of some of the greatest albums ever made, or indeed the greatest albums in a certain artist's discography. So I just thought I'd pick out 10 double albums. To be honest with you, it was quite a difficult choice. I wanted to keep it to a nice round 10. I could have easily gone to 15, probably 20, and there are some glaring omissions in here. There really are. I kind of haven't included some of the more obvious ones, but that's the way it is. I do like to show certain obscurities and things that, people might not be so aware of that I really like. So yeah, without further ado, let's dig in. So I just mentioned I like to show obscurities and things that people may not know. So yeah, why not? Let's start off with maybe the biggest band in the world. We all know what this is. By the way, sorry, I should have mentioned I'm going to try and do this chronologically. So this is as chronological as I can. So anyway, The Beatles by The Beatles, otherwise known as the White Album. Obviously, I know this is well known, and most of you, or a lot of you, will probably have it or at least know it, but I couldn't not include this one because I just think it is absolutely amazing. I really do. I mean, have you ever heard such an eclectic range of styles as this album? This is what the Beatles, well, this is why they were so good in their latter years. They just embraced so much, and the variety on this album is quite astonishing. This isn't to everyone's taste. It really isn't, and I get that. I mean, in my opinion, it's the greatest thing they ever put out. I think it's their best album. I would certainly say sort of Abbey Road and Revolver are close follow-ups in my humble opinion. But I think to a lot of people there is so much material on this. This is a long double album. It's a full hour and a half long, and you've got about 8 tracks per side. They crammed so much material on this. I mean, I think sort of reading about it and seeing documentaries, it would appear that they actually left quite a bit off as well. There's a good few tracks that never made it on, but it's an astonishing record. Some incredible tracks. Happiness is a Warm Gun, Dear Prudence, Sexy Sadie, Helter Skelter. I could do a whole video on this, but I can't. So because there's not enough time, I've got to get through all these. So there it is. What can I say? Incidentally, this is a side opening issue. This used to belong to my dad, and I poached a few of his records over the years because when he switched to CD. Side opening, it's still numbered because they introduced the renumbering in the early 70s. It's number 247307 and does include all the photos and the poster, which is great. I have to say, White Albums in general, like original White Albums, even these 70s pressings, they're not easy to come by. I think, as I understand, people seem to want to have multiple copies of the White Album. I know the top opening is the most desirable, of course it is, mono, low numbers and all that, but I don't really see the White Album at all when I look through the Beatles racks. It really is the most elusive record, and I think it is down to its kind of pure collectability. So there we go. Right, next up we have got, it's the Soft Machine, or just Soft Machine with their third record, if you hadn't worked that out. So yeah, double album, gatefold. This particular one is an original on CBS first pressing. This is like a transitional record for Soft Machine. They started out as really kind of a psychedelic band. They incorporated a bit of jazz into their music, but primarily they were really part of the sort of psychedelic scene. You know, they used to tour with Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd, that kind of scene. You know the swing in London. But as time went on, they became jazz rock fusion, which is what they're better known for. And this particular record is, the jazz rock fusion is really coming into play here. It's just 4 tracks. It's a song aside, all clocking in about 18 to 19 minutes each. And it's phenomenal. I mean, when I first got it, and I'm talking years ago, I was about 17 or 18 when I picked this up. It took me a while to really get into it. The first track, which is a live track, is really kind of noodly and uses a lot of random free noise at the start before getting into the main tune and cutting. But it's as a kind of jazz rock fusion album, it's a lot of it's pretty accessible. The second track, which his name escapes me, Slightly All the Time, is really kind of mellow, very, very melodic, and it just it's not too challenging. And of course you've got Robert Wyatt's Moon in June on side 3, which still embraces the psychedelia. I mean, that is an absolutely fantastic track, and I think to me it really makes the album. It's built up of loads of snippets of tunes he'd been working on, some that had appeared as early demos, and it's just kind of woven into this kind of half improvised tapestry before going into a kind of more of the jazz rock fusion kind of style. It's their best album in my opinion, or the best one. I haven't got absolutely everything by them, but to me this peak period was absolutely great, and yeah, it's a phenomenal record. Bit of a challenge, I'll admit, it might not be to everyone's taste, but I recommend it heartily. Okay, right, this is a great one, this is a good one, and I can't get it out the plastic sleeve, so you might get a bit of glare on this one, I'm afraid. This is Aphrodites Child, 666. Amazing prog album, absolutely amazing. It is phenomenal. It's their 3rd album. Aphrodites Child kind of started out as a psychedelic come pop psych band from Greece. Their early albums are okay, but they decided to completely push the boat out and do this double concept album. What can I say about it? I'm sure a lot of you know it. I mean, it's become a real cult classic now. The track "The Four Horsemen" is one of the best tracks ever, literally ever. It could be one of my top 10 tracks of all time. But it's just a wonderful album. It's just got Eastern influences, ambient sections, little bit of avant-garde here and there. It's absolutely wonderful. It just sounds like the greatest film soundtrack to the greatest film never made. I don't know what else to say. UK originals on Vertigo Swell are so expensive, and I think I've only ever seen 2 or 3 in my life. This particular one is an Italian press. It's actually a mid 70s second press, but they still kept the Swell labels. It's still quite scarce, lovely copy, and this particular issue sounds absolutely phenomenal. So if you do want to get a copy, to be fair, the Spaceship Vertigo issues, which I have had, sound great and aren't too expensive. But also, if you must have a Swell Vertigo, look out for the European pressings. Italian, German, French. They do not cost as much as a UK. Obviously, if you've got the money, a UK Swell is the best one you could get, I would imagine. So there we go. Aphrodites Child. Wonderful stuff. Okay, right. This is another one, actually, that I poached from my dad, from his collection. Well-known one. It's Quadrophenia by The Who. I adore this record. I absolutely adore it. Another concept album. Some people would say the dreaded concept album, but it's unlike the prog bands of the time. It's not too out there, is it? It's kind of, it goes back to the working class roots, the mod years. You know, it's the story. The story is relatively easy to follow, and I think it was certainly clarified years later when they did the film. This to me is the greatest thing they ever put out, and I have to say, I mean, I love The Who, but it really is their last really decent album. Anything that came after that, I think, you know, they were getting in, you know, they were kind of wallowing in substances and God knows what, and then after losing Keith Moon, forget it. Sorry, that's just my opinion. This musically, the musicianship on this is fantastic. John Entwistle's bass, Keith Moon's drums. What a rhythm section. I think it got criticised at the time for being overproduced, and there is a big production on it, but it works so well for me. And yeah, it's one of those ones where if you're going to put it on, you put the whole thing on. You put it on in order. You sit down and listen to it. And not just the music, but the whole package on this one. It's still got the booklet attached. And just I don't know, it's fascinated me when I was younger. The images are just so sort of, they just sort of capture the, the 70s. The black and white, it just seems so stark. It just fits the music. You know, it's just, this is the thing with album covers. You have such an association with the music you're listening to. It's music and pictures. It is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful package, and yeah, it's been played a lot over the years. Brilliant. I mean, if you don't know it or haven't got it, what can I say? Get it. It's not difficult or expensive. Okay, the next one, maybe a bit of an unusual choice, but I love this record. It's Todd Rundgren, and the album is simply called Todd. This is from 1974. So Todd Rundgren, his solo career started very much good quality singer-songwriting stuff. He then kind of started branching out into progressive and space rock. He did an album called A Wizard, a True Star, which completely flipped everything he'd done up to that point on its head. He'd previously done a really great album called another good double album called Something Anything. That's a great one, but that's very much more in the good singer-songwriting mould. I haven't included it here. I like it, but it's not as good as this. To me, this one is like the sweet spot of everything that Todd is good at. It's got the singer-songwriter, but it's also got experimental space rock on it. He just managed to sort of meld the two together and, yeah, create something absolutely brilliant. This is actually quite a short double album. The sort of sides run between about 15 to 16 minutes each, so it's not too much of a challenging or sort of, you know, too much to take in, really. And I think with Todd's reputation, we were lucky to get a double album, because later on in years, he seemed to want to cram as much music onto a side of vinyl as he could. There was a later album called Initiation where he put a 36-minute track on one side of an album, and it's appalling. It's you know, it's devoid of any sort of dynamics. And I think if he'd have done it with this, which he might have just possibly done, it wouldn't have been a good album at all. But thankfully, he spread it over a double, and we came out with this really brilliant one, and very, very even for his discography, this one doesn't get talked about, and I think even as classic rock in general, as it's known, this one doesn't get the recognition it deserves. Bit of a rough copy, I need to upgrade, it's eluding me, so hopefully a better one will come along soon, but that really is recommended. Sticking with the concept album, the progressive concept album, I mean, this one would have been talked about just, you know, to death, really. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway by Genesis. All I will say is, at the time of filming, this might be my favourite record of all time. I adore it, and I could do a whole video on it. But again, there's not enough. Well, there is enough time, but I want to keep your attention to other things. When I first bought this, or got hold of, not this particular copy, this is an upgrade, but when I first got it, I didn't really like it. I was really getting into my prog, really enjoying Genesis, the Gabriel era in particular, as I still do. I just couldn't get on with it. I mean, it's a lot of material, a bit like the White Album. I mean, some of the tracks run into sort of 25 minutes. So this is a really long double album, and it's just so much to take in. But I really stuck with it, and when the penny dropped, I thought it was amazing, and it's just grown on me and grown on me and grown on me over the years. And as a concept record, it's so out there, and I still don't really understand what it's all about. The Inside of the Gatefall's got a story. I've never read it. I can't. I should sit down and try and read the thing, but it's just so strange, the concept that sort of Peter Gabriel came up with. But it kind of doesn't matter, because lyrically, it's very listenable. And to be fair, musically, it's not really too weird. There's a lot of commercial moments on this. I mean, they did try and release some hit singles off this, which absolutely flopped. But it's not too... You'd think this should be really, really challenging to listen to from a musical perspective, but it isn't really. It is like a great collection of songs and nice ambient moments kind of woven together. I mean, if you listen to their previous album, Selling England by the Pound, I think that's a lot more musically challenging than this. I think the thing that sometimes puts people off this record is just the amount of music on it. If it had been, I've heard interviews with Genesis who, and they were thinking of doing it as 2 single albums, again a bit like the White Album was considered, and I'm glad they didn't, because it's absolutely wonderful. And yeah, I saw it perform live last year by Genesis tribute band The Musical Box, and it blew my mind, quite frankly. So yeah, just sensational. If you like prog and you haven't got it, stop what you're doing at the end of this video, obviously, and seek it out, stream it, just get hold of it. It's not rare. Okay, another concept. Well, it's a concept album, I suppose. This one. Oh, this one's everywhere. It really is. Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds. Do you know what? Growing up, and I'm talking as a very small boy, my first exposure to music was the Beatles, in particular the Red and Blue albums, which we had copies on cassettes. This is long before I put a record on a record player. And this, of which we had multiple cassette copies, because it was played so much, the tape used to get worn out. This is so dear to my heart. It's an absolute roller coaster of an album. Scary in parts. I mean, I've spoken to many people of my age range whose parents had this record, and a lot of people say how much it frightened them as a kid, and it's still, there's sections that still give me the shivers to this day. It really is. It's quite an emotional thing. This is my late granddad's copy, because my granddad loved this. All of my family on the Pryor side had a copy of this. My dad loved it, my uncles loved it, my granddad loved it. And when he passed away a good few years back, I inherited his vinyl copy. So without getting too emotional, this one is absolutely cherished and dear to my heart. I don't know what more to say about it. I don't know if it really is to everyone's taste, but it is a high fidelity record, and what's great, if you want to check it out, it's sold in its bucket loads and is still easy to find. Prices seem to be creeping up. It used to be a 2-pack, you couldn't give these away, but now I think people are sort of recognising it, and it's going for more like £10 to £15. But yeah, I couldn't not include War of the Worlds. Wonderful. Right, flip all this prog and concept albums on the head now. Go for something a bit more unusual. Okay, now this double album probably isn't as well known as some of the ones I've shown. This is a band I have talked about on this channel quite a lot, and I've raved about them. It's the Method Actors, and the album is called Little Figures. It's from 1980. They are a post-punk band, originally a duo, but they did expand the lineup. So the original lineup is a percussionist and drummer, and a singer who plays guitar and sometimes bass. This issue was issued in the double, but only in the UK. It's on Armageddon Records. I think the original US edition was on a label called Press, and it was a trimmed down single album, which is a real shame. I don't know why the parent label didn't do a double album, but this is, who knows. But again, short double record. It's about 1/4 hour a side, and if you like post-punk, check this out. It's not, I don't really see it in the wild that much. I think I've only ever seen it once from in the wild. You might have to go on Discogs for it, but it isn't expensive. Same as any of the Method Actors releases. It's really jarring, jagged, quite experimental in places, but not. It's still melodic and very listenable. It's not too out there. I don't really know how to describe it. They are a complete one-off, and without a doubt, one of my favourite post-punk bands. One of the best ones out there. And this is a fantastic double record. But unusual to have this sort of post-punk album in double form. I suppose sort of in the punk era you did have, of course, London Calling came out, Public Image Limited when they scaled the metal box down to a double album, but yeah, it certainly wasn't the era for it, but yeah, wonderful. Okay, another great but unusual double album for the era, and I've talked about this before. XTC, my favourite band of all time, with English Settlement. Some of you may have seen that I did an XTC rankings video. I won't, if you haven't seen it and you wish to watch it, I won't spoil it and tell you where this album came. Please go ahead and watch all 45 minutes of that vid. But this is a life-changing record for me. Absolutely life-changing in the sense that for many years I was so dismissive of music from the 80s, and XTC, I think, were the band that showed me how good 80s music can really be. And when I started getting into them, you know, a few albums in, I got hold of this and mind was blown, and it still blows my mind. And what a shame. They were really on the brink of real success before leader Andy Partridge had his breakdown. But they kept their integrity, they kept their musical integrity, kept going, and continued to release great music through the 80s and into the 90s and beyond. But this is so varied, it's just perfect. It is absolutely perfect. Grab it while you can. It seems to be getting elusive, this one. I still see it around £15 to £20, but I think the reputation for XTC is just scaling up and up, and their records seem to be going for more and more now. I only paid £4 for this back about 15 years ago. That's all they used to cost. And finally, marginal inclusion here for a double album. Joe Jackson, Big World, from 1986. I say marginal inclusion. The story behind this goes is that, you know, we were into the CD era. Joe Jackson had recorded about an hour's worth of music and couldn't quite put a double album out, not enough for a double album, but didn't want any vinyl buyers to miss out on any tracks because he would have had to trim it down. So the record company agreed to put it out as a 3-sided record and charge the price for a single record. What a guy, and what a company. Well done, Joe Jackson and A&M Records. So we've got a 3-sided record. Side 4 is blank, or it has got like a test tone on it, just in case you drop the needle on it. This is wonderful. Great backstory. It's actually a live record, but it's all exclusive material. He wrote a load of material, rehearsed it with his band, but he wanted a spontaneous live feel to the performance. So he rehearsed this band, took them on tour, and then he played a 3-night residency at a venue in New York. I can't remember the name. I'm 99% sure it was in New York City. And then performed these songs in front of an audience. It's always been debated. I've read somewhere that he instructed the audience not to clap, but then I've read other places that he instructed them to only clap when the song was finished, because it must be difficult to be at a gig, hear good material and not give a round of applause at the end. But because of the live performance, it's very much devoid of the trappings of the sort of glitzy 80s production that was going on certainly around 1986. it's a very crystal clear recording, but it's still got a nice rawness to it, and the songs are absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Song on here called Hometown, which he still performs to this day whenever he performs in his hometown, which is here in Portsmouth. He is a local boy. And yeah, to me, this is one of his best records. Absolutely one of the best things he's ever put out. And the good news is, if you want to check it out, I see it everywhere, normally for about £5. Joe Jackson, his records, you know, he has a good reputation, but his records are not going up in value, and they sold well and are everywhere. So, what can I say? Brilliant stuff. Joe Jackson, big world. That's the lot. That's the lot. So, I told you there'd be a few glaring omissions. I didn't include the Pink Floyd The Wall, which I love. I didn't include Deep Purple Made in Japan, but I couldn't include everything. I think I kept probably the ones that I found a little bit on the obvious side and that have been discussed an awful lot off today. I wanted to keep it to 10, and that's the way it is. So there we go, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. What are your favourite double albums? Do you have any of these? Chime in, chat, it's great. I always love to hear from you. And can I just say a really big thank you. The channel at the moment is doing really well. It's very healthy. The subscribers have really gone up, particularly since my last kind of 3 videos. The last crate digging one I got, it got tons of views. It was really popular, and it was a really fantastic day out anyway. But it was just so nice to get all those extra subscribers. You know, we're heading towards that golden 1,000. But if you haven't subbed and you like what I do, no time for complacency. Please hit that like and subscribe button. It really will mean a lot and help the channel grow. So, but to all of you watch and tune in, I seriously, I'm so grateful. It really means a lot, and it's nice. It's just so nice to be able to share this music with you all. So there we go. Okay, that's all from me. So until the next time, take care. Thank you very much for watching. See you all soon.